All right, so we stopped last week on the none of the above tag. So I'm just going to jump down here to the time and date tags. And what this does is if you use these tags, it automatically puts in the time and or the date for you. So if you have a date calculation and you don't want to have the person enter in the date all the time, but you want it to calculate based off of the time the person put the record in, you can use this now tag, which will automatically put in the time when the form is open. So as you can see here, the now server is a little behind, but that's because I've had this open for about a half hour. So you can refresh it, and I'll go through the differences between these three. So the now tag gives you the current user's date and time. So if I'm in Arizona, it's going to be this time. If I'm in London, it's going to be 7 hours ahead. So this value will be the user's current time. Now the server, now-server, that will be the REDCap server's date and time. So if I'm in London, this one's going to be 7 hours ahead of this one, but this is going to be where the server lives. So it doesn't matter where the user is, it's always going to be based on where the REDCap server lives. And right now the server lives here in Arizona, so it's on Arizona time. Now, the UTC time should be the Universal Standard Time, which is Greenwich Mean Time, which should be London. I'm not sure why it's still the same as our time. It should be different. So let me make sure I copied that over correctly, because to save time, I just copied and pasted these fields, and I might not have updated the action tag. Nope. So it should be. So let me scroll back down to the UTC. There we go. For some reason, it hadn't updated. So now you can see that it's, oh, that's weird. It's updating it to that might be something to contact REDCap about. It was 20, and then when I hit the now button, it changed. Well, that makes sense. It changed to now my time, I guess, because this button, the code that fires with this button must be now, like this time, instead of now UTC. So as long as you don't hit the now button, this will be Greenwich Mean Time. So these three are date and time, and then the last three are the exact same, but for date. And so you have to make sure that they're date formats, because they will error out if you have a date time format, because they won't put the time in for you. So this would be the same thing as now. It's just the date. So it's the user's current date. So if I'm here in Arizona, it's the 13th, the 20th. I'm wondering why this says like the 13th on these. I just noticed that. Oh, you know what it is? It's because that's when I opened the record. Sorry, that's why it's confusing me. Hold on. Let's go and add a new record, because these records I created last week, which makes sense why they're showing 213. So let's create a new record here. Now when I scroll down, okay, now it's working. Now it's 2:20 current time. Server is going to be the current time anyway, because the server is in Arizona. UTC is going to be 7 hours ahead, and then these dates are correct now. Okay, so it doesn't update, which is good. It doesn't update every time you open the form. So if you have a date that tracks when the user opened the form and filled it out, you don't want it to change the next time you go in and look at it, because then that automatically updates the date and throws everything off. So it fires as soon as the form is open, and then that value stays. So if you did want to change it, you would hit now, and that would update to the current time, and that's what I was doing previously, which I shouldn't do. So once again, if we were in Australia, this would be tomorrow's date, it'd be the 21st, but since we're all together here, it's all 2/20. So you can have this date value set and hidden somewhere, and then you can use it for a date calculation field or a date diff if you have to schedule appointments based off of that. The user comes in and they logged in today and their baseline appointment is 2 weeks from now, and then their follow-up appointment is a month from now. You can base these calculations off of this. And then one thing to note is that you don't want to use branching logic with these fields. So if you have any of these fields using these action tags, because they get values as soon as the form opens, you're going to get an error saying, do you want to erase this value? And so instead of using the branching logic to hide these forms, you just want to add the @hidden action tag, because that'll just hide the field for you. Okay. So the next one is password mask, and we're probably all familiar with what that is, even if we don't know what it was called. But anytime you go to a website and you're typing in your password, that's exactly what it does, is it just masks what you're entering. So if you ever need a field that is going to be kind of hashed out, something that you don't want people to see them typing into, you would just add this @password mask action tag, and whenever they type in, it'll automatically mask it for you. So the next one is a placeholder, which I use. I've worked with REDCap for a long time, and I was actually very pleased to see this. I never knew that this was an option. You can have a placeholder text in your field to kind of guide your user and show them like an example of this is what kind of information we want you to enter. And you can put anything into this. So right now I just have last name, comma, first name. So if I had a name field and I wanted the person to specifically enter, instead of just saying Manuel Snyder or Manuel S. Snyder or however, if I had a specific format that I wanted them to follow, I could guide them to enter last name dot first name. So they would say, or last name, comma, first name. And then as soon as as soon as they don't have a value in there, that placeholder text pops back up. And so you would set that in the design view. Let me duplicate this and open up the design view. So in the placeholder text, you just add the value you want in quotes. So if I wanted something to say, enter your name here, then it just says enter your name here. So I could give them, this is a place for me to actually give them instructions that goes away whenever they start entering data. And that's really nice, because then instead of having in a field note, it just gives you an extra place for the user to see instructions and help them enter your data correctly. And then the next one is random order. Sorry, I was looking at the chat. The next one is random order, and this works with any checkboxes, radio buttons, drop downs, yes, no, or true, false fields. And what you do is it essentially creates a random order of your options. So if we go back to the action tags here, you'll see that I have this as 1, 2, 3, 4. But every time I load this, this is going to change the order. So if you have values that you want to keep changing, not necessarily changing the values, but in order so users don't get complacent, or if there's, instead of somebody, that would just click 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, or 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. If you want to mix it up to make the user continue to be engaged and they have to actually think about what they're clicking, you kind of throw them for a loop by randomizing the order of these fields. So every time they go in, and every question will be different. So they would have to, every time you put this on a field, it would just randomize the order. Now it doesn't work for matrix fields, because that would be, they're separated into columns, and that would be too hard for it to do. So it's only for single questions like this. So if we go back to, if I just hit refresh and reload it and scroll back down, you'll see that it's in a different order. So now it's 1432. Now this is only for the data entry view, because when you export, the data is all going to be the same, and when you look at the design view, it's going to be in the order that you put it in. So it's only when the user is entering data. And so then we have a set of read-only tags. So if you want a field that is locked, you would put the read-only onto it. And you can do this for any type of field. And this read-only here locks it everywhere. So it's on all data entry forms, your survey, your data entry view that we're looking at right now, on the mobile app, everywhere. But if you only wanted to lock on mobile, you would say @readonly-app. And we don't have the mobile app. I don't have an emulator on here to show you the mobile app, but whenever you would go onto the mobile app, the field would look like this. It would be grayed out. And on the form, that's what we're looking at here is the read-only-form. So it's locked on this form. But you can see here that locked on survey is still editable. But if I open up the survey, and we scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see now that the locked on mobile form is open and the locked on form is open, but the read-only is locked for everything. So that's going to be locked, and then the locked on survey is locked. So depending on where you want to lock a survey, because you might want to give somebody the option to change a value on a survey, but then, like if you have a participant who's filling something out, they can change that form or that value. But then when you have your users looking at the data, you don't want them to change anything. So you would lock it for them, or vice versa. If there's like administrative fields that you want displayed for the user so they can see that value, that information is there, but they can't touch it. But then on the back end, when you're evaluating the data, you can add things and change that. So that's how you would use that. You would just, depending on how you want to lock things and when. And finally, the last action tag is username. So this is actually really nice, because if you have a database or one of these REDCap projects where you have a bunch of people who are working in it, instead of having a field that makes them manually type who entered this data, like data entered by manual, and they have to select from a drop-down or type their name in, that becomes cumbersome, because even though I'm logged in, I can select somebody else's name from the drop-down, or I can just type in somebody else's name, or I can just leave it blank. So there's really no accountability for me if somebody's like, well, who entered this data? You look at that field and it could really be anybody. But if you add a field with this @username tag, you can even lock it using the other ones, or even these, the read-only. So as soon as I open up this form, it's pulling in my username, and if it's locked in. So now if you go back and see who entered this data, you'll have my username right there. So that's really helpful for that. And you can do it for other things too. Like if you want to, if you want to pull that value in for something else, anytime somebody's logged in, like they're tracking that, it's just it's a way for you to automatically pull in the username, and you don't have to worry about building a drop-down list of all your users, or if you have a program project that you're having users join and leave, or instead of you having to have somebody manage like a user list drop-down, you just throw this action tag onto a field, and REDCap does it for you, because anytime somebody signs into your project, it pulls that value in automatically. So does anybody have any questions with the tags? No, everybody's happy. That's what we're here for, Janet. It's really nice. I mean, I used like some of these action tags, but I've never actually sat down and looked through all of these. So building this little project as a demo for you guys was really helpful for me too, just knowing what's out there. And these are the standard action tags that come with REDCap. And that's why I wanted to kind of get you guys kicked off of this, because there are a lot of cool action tags that get pulled in when you enable certain modules. And so that'll add some more functionality for us. So if you really like this one, you'll like the ones that we have in the future when I show you the other ones for the external modules. But I think that's it. And I think Terry's on the line now. So I will give it back to Terry. Thanks, everybody.